Hello again. This is part 2 of the Corvette build. It's likely to be quite a few videos of this as I go through it. So I did a part run through, for anyone who didn't watch part 1, and explain that I was obviously using the Revell kit, but I'm using the Great Little Ships or the David J. Parkins set for the upgrades and the sort of etch brass and everything else. So I thought I'd make a start on it, and because I'm fairly new to soldering and I wanted to get a grip of what I was doing really before I started to tackle any of the larger parts, I've started doing some small components. Now, one thing I did mention yesterday was that I had it in my mind that I had this kit when it first came out, and I got it as a Christmas present, and I was thinking, you know, I might have been about 13, 14, something like that when it came out. And then when I looked, according to Scalemates, it came out in 1979. So if that's the case and that's correct, then I probably would have been working. I would have bought it myself at that time. I'm not too sure that date's correct. It may be an earlier kit, I don't know. But you know, it's strange what the your memory does, you know, when you sort of think back on things. So it could be that it is a later date than I remember. The other thing I mentioned was that you know, these upgrade parts, they replace probably, you know, about 90% of the kit. And I was pointing out about some of the plastic components. As it turns out, I thought I'd start today with some parts of the bridge assembly, and you do actually use the base from the kit. I mean, they're not too bad, these parts. I mean, I'm assuming that they are sort of to scale. There's very little detail on them, but I don't think there was that much detail on the original. So these parts have been obviously cleaned up and cut out. There is, in fact, you can see where the sort of little deck part is here, and it tells you to sand off the plank detail on it, and that's because there is actually a etched brass part. You can see that in the light there, which fits inside here. So that's all assembled, and this part is designed to slide in there. Now, it is quite a tight fit, but it does go in. I've had it in once. It may need a tiny little bit of the edges here, just sanding off a little tiny bit just to get it to slide in. And it's actually got a fold on the back. You can just about see it there, which covers up the back edge of this plastic part here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to spray this up, prime it, probably put the top coat on it, and then I'll insert this. I'll paint this up and then insert this, because I think although these were probably I've got a feeling they were painted, they weren't just the sort of varnished timber, but I'll have to check that. The problem being that most photos are black and white, so it's difficult to see what they are, but I'll try and check what these were. So this is either going to be like a varnished timber color, or, as I suspect, it probably was painted, but then where it's heavily worn, you know, people walking backwards and forwards, it would have worn away. So I'll look at that, and that can be put in later. The other thing I'm intending to do, there was a bit of clean up on the inside of these because they got sink marks, and there was numbers for the, you know, the components in there. And although I don't think a lot of this is going to be seen when it's together, because there's an awful lot of stuff covers this up, I'm going to look for a basic layout of this. I'm assuming this is the wheelhouse, you know, in bad weather when they're not actually on the top deck of the ship. So there should be some equipment here, and you know, there might be the odd sort of bit of furniture and lockers and things like that in there. These parts here, you can just about see them there, sliding doors, so presumably there'd be a similar detail on the inside to show the sliding door. So rather than using the individual clear parts that Revell give you, which they're not particularly clear, to be honest, and they're a nightmare to fit in here, I'm going to go with a piece of acetate on the inside to glaze them, and I'll build up some frames around the inside so that a lot of these interiors tended to be sort of polished wood on some of these older vessels, so I may go for that kind of look. I'm building this not to a specific type. I'll probably go with the Snowberry that is, you know, the decals are given in the kit, but I'm not a sort of purist in terms of, you know, I want everything to be historically accurate. If I think something looks good on it, then I'll put it on, because I'm only really building it for my benefits at the end of the day. Yeah, so that's the kit parts sort of going together, which are going to start taking these other parts. And there's lots of, this is the, I opened up the bags for the bridge parts, and there's an awful lot of pieces that go on the top deck. There is, in fact, if I can find it, there's the actual deck part, which everything attaches to, and it's got the side walls and everything on it. So I've been cleaning those up, just sort of getting a grip of what's to do. There are some components here because you get two options for the radar. I'm going for the sort of octave-shaped one, so one of these bases will be redundant, and these parts will be redundant because this is the octagonal part there that folds into like an octagon shape. So you know, loads to do there. So as a bit of a practice for the soldering, I got out the mast parts. Now the mast, there's one of the ones I've cleaned up there. I don't know whether that'll show up on the camera. Maybe if I move that out of the way, you might be able to see it a little bit better. So these are in white metal, and they're pretty straight when you get them out of the pack. You know, I've cleaned them up. I took the seam off them, and then I've had to sort of straighten them up slightly just in order to get them squared off. But these are superior to having the plastic ones in the kit, which tend to bend. And there's a crow's nest, this part here, which actually fits on this little platform here, like that. And part of the sort of soldering exercise was this crow's nest. It's white metal. It's like a sort of white metal bucket, and then it's got a three-part photo etched sort of cage around the top. So I don't know how well that will focus there, but you can see it's very, very delicate. So, you know, that gives you an idea of the work that's gone into that. I had to drill out some holes in the top. I originally tried gluing these pieces to the side, but that wasn't working, so I actually drilled some tiny holes around the rim and inserted them that way, and then you have to sort of put a ring over the top. And it did bend a little bit while I was sort of doing this, but then I managed to straighten it all up with some tweezers once it was together. So that's the cage. Don't think that'll oh, there you go. So you can see how super fine that is, and it looks pretty decent now that it's together. So obviously when I, you know, finish the kit, I might be able to place a little figure in there with a pair of binoculars. To reach the crow's nest, there's a rather long ladder. Now, believe it or not, this is made out of 3 pieces of photo etch, the rung part, and then there's 2 very, very thin strips with a tiny groove in the middle. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it, but I managed to solder it together. And again, if you look how fine that is there, you can see the solder on the inside. There's a couple of little lumpy bits in there which you might get a file in there and clean them out. But I think under a couple of coats of paint that's going to look fine. And it is actually quite strong. Actually, it's quite rigid. So that's worked out well. There's a smaller ladder, which is this one, which is a little bit easier to build, and this one attaches to the front of the funnel. So that's another one done. Talking about the funnel, here's the funnel here. Now the funnel itself, you basically sand all the detail off the outside of the kit part, and then it's skinned with this very, very thin sort of pre-rolled piece of thin brass, which has got lots of detail on it. You can see all the rivets there, and you know, it looks really, really nice, and it's a perfect fit, and sort of one edge just tucks under the other at the back. It's quite hard to fit because you have to put sort of lines of super glue and then gradually sort of mold it round, and then get another layer of super glue and keep coming round till you get it on. And then once it was on, I put the cap on. That's had the sort of kit spokes sanded out of the inside, and then it has this brass insert in there. And I obviously painted the inside of the funnel matte black. It's a bit difficult getting the brush in there, but it doesn't really matter, because by the time all this is painted and the airbrush has caught the top edge and everything, it's going to look fine. And now this is built, there's lots and lots of little tiny details attached to this, including that ladder goes up the front. But I'm going to leave all these pieces till I'm ready for the sort of painting stage, and then gradually paint everything and then assemble everything together. Another part that I sort of had a go at soldering is this part here, and this is the flag locker from the bridge. And if I bring this up to here, see if I can get that to focus again like I did before. There you go. Now that's made out of loads and loads of tiny little intersecting pieces of brass with alternating slots in them, and they slot together in the same way that if I was making one myself, you know, out of plywood or something, I'd do exactly the same thing. It's got some detail on the top, some little sort of braces with rivets in. I did actually make it slightly wrong in that I glued a piece in the bottom that I realised it shouldn't have been at the bottom, but it was too late, so I've had to put a tiny strip of styrene in there to fill it up. But overall, when it's all painted, you won't really notice that. But what I will be able to do is put loads of little rolled up tiny bits of paper representing the flags that, you know, they use for signalling and things like that. And that was soldered. You can see the joints there where it was soldered together, so the soldering is working quite well. The actual solder I'm using is this stuff, this Cars detailing solder. I ordered this simply through, you know, reading about it online. One thing to notice is it does contain lead, so every time you use it, you know, you've got to go and wash your hands, and I suppose could wear gloves, but I mean, I think washing your hands is fine. And it's also used in conjunction with this flux, which is basically just a liquid, and so you paint a little tiny bit of this on the joint, and then you apply the solder from the tip of the iron, and it just flows straight into the joint straight away. It takes a little bit of practice, but it isn't as difficult as it seems. I think this stuff is, well, it says causes burn, so I'm assuming it's some kind of caustic or corrosive. It's got the corrosive symbol on the side there. Again, you know, it's not for kids to use, but as long as you're careful and wash your hands after doing all the soldering, then it should be fine. One other thing I've done, I've started assembling these ventilator or vents or whatever they're called. These need a lot of cleanup. They're two halves, and I'm going to have to put a little bit of filler on the back of these. The insides, they're not as smooth as I'd want them, so I think I'm going to have to use some Mr. Surfacer in there to sort of blend that out. And then you then have to thin the edges of these down, and then there's a small brass ring fits to the face to put the detail on, and also these sort of straps that are going around the middle there, they're not very clear there in the light. They need a piece of brass attaching to them as well, and these are the ones for the around where the funnel fits, but there's quite a lot more of these in the kit. Some are two parts, some are single ones that need drilling out, because there was no slide molded in those days, so that, you know, if this was produced today by another manufacturer, that all the vents would probably be single pieces and slide mold, but they're not, so there you go. So yeah, so I'm quite pleased with the soldering, how that's going. I'm going to basically do lots and lots of small parts. These are the instructions out of the bridge kit, and you can see the radar housing there, which I'm going to use. I'm not doing the circular one, I'm doing the octagonal one. So all this can be constructed. I don't know what the glazing's like in the kit yet, I've not pulled it out, but that chances are this is going to have to be glazed with pieces of acetate as well. I'll probably leave the top off this, have it all painted up, then apply the glazing and finally glue the top on right at the end of the build. This radar piece in the transmitter or whatever it is, this is made out of multiple parts, whereas in the Revell kit, or was the Matchbox kit, it's one part. So obviously no detail, but again they do use the what would you call that, the sort of pintle or whatever, where it sits, so that comes out of the kit as well. There's various little sounding machines, you know, to build. This is quite complicated, or it looks complicated. It isn't as complicated as it looks, but there's lots and lots of lockers and various detail parts, and I mean, there's the flag locker there that I built. There's a life belt rack which is made out of multiple components, so all these are going to have to be built and cleaned up. Given that I'm soldering and using the flux and everything, all these parts are going to have to be thoroughly cleaned before I'm able to paint them, because otherwise it'll stop the paint sticking to them. Some people recommend metal primers. I've never really had a massive issue painting etch brass with just an automotive acrylic grey primer, so I'll be using one of those. And yeah, so there's lots to do. I've found it easier as well working through these written instructions to literally just tick off parts as I go, because otherwise you lose your place here, you don't know where you've been to. And I think as I complete a part, I'll put a line through it so I know that I've done that step and work my way through that way, because there's no other way of keeping track otherwise. Because there's another page there, and there's another page on the back of there, and that's just for the bridge. So the good thing about this is I can do so much of it. If I get frustrated with a piece or just fed up of building something for a while, I can move on to something else. I can build the dinghies, I can build the little boats, I can do the weaponry, things like that. So it's just a case of treating it as if it's like 30 miniature kits that all come together at the end to make up the bigger picture. So yeah, so it's I mean, one thing I would say about this photo etch, the precision of the parts is fantastic. It's some of the best I've ever worked with. It's certainly better than the likes of some of the stuff you get from Edward and people like that, that are a bit vague. You know, they don't always sort of go where you think they're going, or the instructions of what to remove off the kit are vague. This is very detailed and it shows you exactly what you need to do. They bend quite easily. I think as I come to do this part, I'll have to anneal them. If you don't know what annealing is, it's basically where you heat up the brass, you know, a pair of pliers, heat it up in a gas flame. I normally use the gas cooker in the kitchen, and I just heat it up till it glows red, and then you just leave it somewhere to cool down naturally, and that softens the brass enough to be able to bend it very easily. And then over time, it gradually age hardens and goes back to its, you know, previous strength. Obviously, you can harden it again if you want by heating it again and then plunging it into water. But I find it, you know, once it's been bent, it's fine. Some of the longer bends, I've been using this device, which and there's loads of these on the market, but this particular one is from Paragraphics in the USA, and I'm quite friendly with Paul, who produces the kits. I've used a lot of their kits in the past, and this is certainly one of the easiest ones I've come across. This is actually supplied as a photo etch kit that you sort of, you know, put together, but it's not brass. I think it's stainless steel, and you can use this part here that slides in there. You catch the part underneath, and then basically it just folds in two, like so. There you go. That the wrong way in then. So that folds up like that. So that basically bends the part while you're holding it on the join line there. And you can actually turn this around the other way, and you can use individual small parts in it as well. Although most of the small parts in here, when I've come to bend those, I've got a pair of, these are just jewelers. They were described as jewelers pliers. I think I bought them in Hobbycraft, I think. There's obviously different quality ones you can get. I think I paid about £3 or £4 for these. But they're unlike most pliers in that the faces on the inside are quite smooth, and you can bring them together and you can grip something without marking it like you would with a conventional pair of pliers. So you can use that to bend with. You know, you can use tweezers to bend some of them. It depends on the individual part. So they're handy to have as well. But otherwise, it's you know, I've made a fair bit of progress today. Really, not you know, sort of going mad. Really, you know, just taking my time with it. And a lot of these other parts you can see here are parts from the funnel. There's loads of different pipes and things that get attached to the outside. And although these are white metal, they've all got individual little sort of brackets made out of etched brass that then attach them to the side. So you know, and it all adds to that detail that's just completely missing from the basic kit. So yeah, so as I say, any questions you might have about this, then I'm happy to answer them. And you know, if you've got anything you specifically want to see, then I'll try and demonstrate that. I might try and do a video next where I'm actually doing some of the soldering, so you can just see the process of the soldering going on, maybe on something a bit larger, because some of these parts, you know, if I was trying to solder these and film it at the same time, it's a bit of bit of a problem, but hopefully I can put something together where we can see it. I might bring the other camera down closer so you can actually get a close-up of what I'm doing. So so thanks for watching, and I'll be putting another video together in the next day or two. It's actually the Easter break here, so I've got a bit of time to work on this and certainly get a fair bit done. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.